My mother, of course, the look on her face. I mean, even as a toddler, that memory is still imprinted on my memory. And so I have personal experience of the effects of firearms violence.
Yes.
If we were to transfer from using alcohol as our drug of choice into cannabis, what would happen in our society? Well...
Welcome back to A Chat with Brian 2024. How are you going, Brian?
Going good, Dave. How about yourself?
Oh, look, excellent. You know what? I've heard around the traps that you are a very philosophical person, so I've got a bit of a challenge for you. I'm going to pass you an object and I want you to create something philosophical or say something philosophical about this object. You up for the challenge?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so let's see. Oh, I've got a tissue box here. So I would like you to give me something philosophical about this tissue box or this tissue.
When I see the tissues, okay, the first thing that comes to mind, apart from a runny nose, of course, is tears.
Okay.
Tears. And bearing in mind the tragedy we've had last Friday with the murder, the domestic violence, the firearms violence, and I bring it into context with the firearms bill we're going to be debating, I am drawn to my personal memories of seeing my father being brought back. Okay. He was shot. Oh. And this is actually in Malaya, before it became Malaysia, in the emergency. I was a toddler. Must have been about 3, 4 years old. And I remember seeing this, I was playing outside and seeing this ambulance being driven in, a Gurkha-driven ambulance, military ambulance, big Red Cross. And seeing my stretcher and my father being brought in and carried upstairs onto the bed. So, of course, as a toddler, I ran up there. And there's my father on the bed, and there's blood everywhere. My mother, of course, the look on her face. I mean, even as a toddler, that memory is still imprinted on my memory. As she doesn't know, is her husband going to survive or not? Because what had happened is, this is the terrorists, they'd come around a tree with a shotgun there, aimed at his stomach. He's seen this, he dived into the ditch, and they ripped his side out, not the middle of his stomach. Otherwise, of course, I'd been an orphan. But it was terrible. And so I have personal experience of the effects of firearms violence. Yes. And so when I see what's gone on just now recently, I can well imagine what actually has happened. Many people have experienced this, and far worse, of course. So my philosophical contribution isn't so much as to how the bill is going to be prepared, which is actually flawed. It's actually the underlying problem. Because I call myself a fundamentalist. You might think, a fundamentalist? You're thinking Taliban or the Christian right? No. I look at the underlying cause. The problems up there are the effects of the underlying cause. And we can put plasters on these, but the underlying cause has to be addressed. Because if we fix this, all of that goes away. And also it's cheaper and more effective and lasts for longer. So my philosophical thoughts are that the troubles we have in our society, which is a beautiful society, the pain we've got, the fear, the anxiety, the rising violence, in all areas, and the 30-odd years I can think of legislation, are we any better off? No. And so my thoughts are, let us get to the fundamental, the underlying bottom line causes and deal with these rather than putting more legislation up there, which so far has only increased the violence in community.
That's right. And because I've known you a long time, how do you propose to keep people safe? Because safety is such an important thing.
Do you know, I'm going to give you a question. Of all the legislation we have got, a lot of it really devolves from what we call the 10 Commandments or the 11 Commandments. So they're true in all the religions, are they not?
That's correct.
Can you find one word which encapsulates all of those commandments?
Safe.
My word is kindness.
Kindness. Oh, tell me more about that. I'm really curious.
Well, the Jews have a word for it as well in the vernacular. They say, be a mensch. Okay. As a human, be a mensch. Be kind. Look at all the 10 Commandments. Don't commit adultery. Be kind to your neighbours, and don't do what would hurt them. You know, and Jesus said this as well. Don't do to others what you don't want to have to happen to yourself. Be kind. Every single law. Let's take, for example, the food processing industry, which is making billions of dollars, making us sick. by putting food on our tables, which is actually not really food, it's chemical.
Yeah.
Okay, and making our gut sick, giving us chronic disease in the future. For the profits of the people. Are you being kind to the people? Why not be kind? All the legislation we've got about food additives and colorings and the poisons they can put into food devolves down to be kind. Put the food you sell to people, be kind, make it good.
Absolutely.
And so the legislation that we've got is actually superfluous, is it not?
Yes.
So if we were to talk about safety in the community, why don't we simply look at the essential need to be kind one to another?
Well, that's right. It's like building a house, isn't it? You don't start with the roof.
It's a foundation, isn't it?
That's right. You have to have a foundation. And yeah.
If we're basically kind to each other, of course, there's a multi-generational need. We've got to actually relearn how to be kind. Because so far, we've learned how to follow laws, and we've learned how to punish people for breaking the laws, but we haven't actually learned really deeply in our hearts, we haven't learned how to be kind.
That's right. I agree. And speaking of kindness, let's change the subject for a minute. I'm going to say one word, Mardi Gras. Tell me about Mardi Gras.
You heard I was a Nimbin again, haven't you?
I did, yes, I did.
Okay. Look, Nimbin, of course, is the focal point of the cannabis culture in Australia, and they do a fantastic job. Now, you might say, oh, it's a dangerous herb, it's going to cause, it's a narcotic. And I'm going to say, well, are you certain? You've listened to a lie, because pharmacologically, cannabis is nowhere near a narcotic. But all our international laws, the national and the subservient state laws, are all predicated upon cannabis being a narcotic. A lie. And Nimbin pointed this out. Oh, it's all wrong because we believe the propaganda. And they have persisted in, and they've got a Mardi Gras, and they celebrate cannabis and put it out to the world. And do you know, this year, the police, they always are very careful about the police in Nimbin, and they're always very, very stern and severe and checking everyone going in and out to make sure you haven't got any cannabis in your system. And this year, they were so polite and kind and relaxed, and the whole thing just went off so beautifully. People are learning that cannabis itself is not a poison. And so we should learn how to use that properly. But the people there, look, not everyone would enjoy being there. If you like being with elderly hippies, go to Nimbin. Okay, go to Nimbin. But it's just a fantastic place to visit. I loved it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they always say, you know, if you remembered the 60s, you weren't really there.
You weren't there, yes. Yeah. And the epitome. But lovely, lovely people, and I enjoy being there because, you see, it's such a friendly atmosphere. Do you know that the hotel there, which sells alcohol, was almost empty?
Really?
I mean, the bar itself usually was packed with people getting drunk and bad things happening. Yeah. This year, quiet. Wow. It was just a wonderful experience. This shows, if we were to transfer from using alcohol as our drug of choice into cannabis, what would happen in our society? Well, you talk about kindness and violence, that the violence would fall because people would naturally just be kind to each other.
Absolutely.
And peaceful. Do we not deserve that?
We do deserve that.
We do deserve that.
We do deserve it. I think everyone deserves a bit of kindness and peace. So, what's one more thing that you think is really important to say before we wrap up? I'm going to leave the ball in your court today.
Think.
Think
and choose differently, because the old paths you have taken so far, the tried and tested paths in the past, have they given you what you need? And look at the world today? No. So choosing the same old is going to give you the same old. Do you want that? Think differently and choose wisely.
Absolutely. I agree. It's sometimes easier to follow an old path because it's familiar rather than taking a new path, although it takes courage to take a new path. How did you find the courage, just before we wrap up, to take this new path? Well,
I'm very glad you mentioned that, because choosing something new is courageous, because it's not new. I'm uncomfortable with this because I've always done it this way. I know people there who always take the same path to work, and taking a different path, oh no, I'll take my usual path. And it's in life is like this. We do the same old paths. And that's why people have been rusted on for this side or rusted on for that side, and they don't like it, but that's what they're used to. Now, when you make a change, it takes courage, because something different may happen. And it may not be what I want. and therefore I'll stick with the old.
Absolutely. It just reminds me of a story that I heard when I was working in the prisons.
Yes.
There was a lad there and he was doing inductions, which means, he was welcoming new prisoners to the establishment. And he told this story about walking down a road. You walk down a road and you fall in a hole. Yeah. You fall in a hole and you go, oh, I shouldn't fall in holes, that's really bad. I'll get out of that hole and I'll keep walking. So he walks down the road a bit more and falls in another hole. Wow, that's 2 holes I've fallen in. Oh, definitely can't fall in holes. Got to watch out for holes. Falls in a 3rd hole. Oh my golly, I just keep falling in holes. And some other lad comes along and says, well, why don't you just walk down a different path? So I absolutely agree with you. Taking change takes courage. Making the changes definitely takes courage. And sometimes you've got to watch out for holes.
Take a risk and smile.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Brian, for your time today. You have a wonderful day, and everyone out there have a wonderful day. Thank you for the likes, thank you for the subscribes, and just remember to subscribe to us and like us. And if you've got any comments or questions, please contact us with those likes, questions, and comments. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Brian, for your time.